Well, it was a terrifying mid-air moment. A plane suddenly jerks and a flight attendant drags the violently shaking pilot out of the cockpit. It happened on board an Air Canada jet flying from New Jersey to Nova Scotia, the plane diverting because of the pilot's medical emergency. Our Faith Abube with more on how passengers stepped in to help.
A terrifying mid-air scare after a pilot suffered a medical emergency with nearly 70 people on board a commercial flight from New Jersey to Canada.
Pilot is incapacitated. Aircraft is being flown by the co-pilot.
Air Canada Flight 7664 had just taken off from Newark Airport when the pilot suffered a medical episode. Rodney McDonald was on the plane and says there was a sudden jolt.
The plane started swerving violently. Within a few moments, one of the flight attendants entered the cockpit frantically, and a few moments later, he was dragging one of the pilots out of the cockpit.
McDonald says the pilot appeared out of control, convulsing on the floor.
It was a fairly strenuous 40 minutes of keeping him down and using as many seatbelts as we could to restrain his legs, arms, and chest.
According to Air Canada, the co-pilot quickly took control of the aircraft and was diverted to Boston, EMS attending to the pilot, wheeling him away from the plane and into an ambulance.
And what a harrowing moment for everybody on board. We are told that travel arrangements were made for passengers affected by this. However, at this time, we do not know the condition of that pilot who received medical treatment.
Faith, thank you so much. Well, my next guest is the passenger you just heard from in that piece. Rodney McDonald joins me now, along with his wife, Sarah. They were both on that flight with their two young sons. Rodney, Sarah, thank you so much for being with us. Rodney, I want to start with you. Take us back to that moment when you felt that sudden swerve and realized that this was much more than turbulence.
Yeah, it was one of those small regional jets, and it was clear something had jolted the controls. The way it swerved to the left and then swerved back to the right, and people got nervous pretty quick.
So, okay, and once you saw the flight attendant dragging this pilot out from the cockpit, tell me what was going through your mind and what made you make that decision to jump in?
Yeah, I was in the front of the plane in the front row. There was some back and forth frantically with the flight attendants going in and out of the cockpit after this swerve. And then the door burst open and the larger of the two flight attendants was dragging the captain out by his armpits, and he fell right on the floor in front of me. And I knew I had to get out of the way, so I ran back to my wife and kids were a little further back in the plane. And at that point, he became physically quite violent, not in an intentional way, but he was reacting in a very dangerous way. And my wife said, "You got to get up there."
Sarah, tell me why you told him you had to get up there. Did you just know that your husband would know what to do? Did he ever have any medical training? Yeah, tell me what was going through your mind.
No, you could tell something was going wrong. And I reminded Rodney that he was strong, because he's a strong person physically, but he's also very capable in situations like this under extreme stress. And I knew he'd be like the right person to jump in at that time.
Wow. How did you keep your sons calm, Sarah? Were they freaking out?
They were surprising. One of them started praying, Ross, and the other son, Paul, just turned his headphones up really loud. And that was his way of distracting himself in this sort of situation. And they could see that I was visibly upset, but I knew I had to stay calm too, just for their sake and the sake of the other passengers.
So, Rodney, we should note that, we don't know exactly what the pilot's medical problem was at this point, but doctors advise against, holding people down if they appear to be having a seizure. But there was no doctor on board the plane. There was a nurse. So how did you all decide, how to handle this and what to do? I mean, it was a split-second decision. Was the nurse guiding you at all or making suggestions? Tell us what happened there in the moment.
Yeah, I thought she was a nurse, actually, but turns out this lady had been a lifeguard. So that was the most medical experience there was. But her brother was someone who had epilepsy, and she was very competent in the situation. We knew you shouldn't restrain someone who is having or has had a seizure, but it was very dangerous for him and for the people around. The jet was so small, and he was flailing and kicking, and this gentleman was very, very strong. I mean, people are strong in that kind of situation because of adrenaline, but on a normal day, this guy was very strong.
He was throwing himself against the window. And it was just like something had to be done. He had to be restrained in some sort of a way. And I think these guys made the right choice in doing that.
Wow. Okay. So then, and either one of you can describe this. How did the pilot finally calm down? How did things settle? Did he come to? Was there any kind of communication? It probably happened so fast, but how did you, bring everything to a calm moment?
Yeah, so me and about 4 other guys managed to get multiple seatbelts around his ankles, his wrists, his chest, his waist. And we still had to physically hold him in place for about half an hour. And he was not coherent. He was not able to respond to us. He was just yelling at the top of his lungs. And then by the time we landed on the ground in Boston, all of a sudden he started to realize something really bad had happened, and he wasn't aware of his surroundings. And we were trying to reassure him and calm him down. And then by the time the first responders got onto the plane, he was more or less answering their questions, but I would say he was still very confused with what had happened.
Before I let you go, have you been able to talk to him? Do you have an update? Do you know how he's doing?
No update. We hope he's doing well. We know that, this was out of his control. The crews did an amazing job. So we're really thankful.
Well, let me tell you, passengers and crew and flight attendants have been praising your husband, Rodney, and also you too, Sarah, for just trying to keep everybody, not just your own family, but everybody calm. It's pretty scary but heroic situation, and we're just grateful that you were there. And we will definitely update everyone on the pilot's condition as soon as we know. Rodney and Sarah McDonald, thank you so much.